Our next speaker before our lunch break is a well-known, long-standing, and highly regarded cultural leader and mentor in our community here in Saskatoon, and it's Maria Linklater, who was born at the Thunderchild Frist Nation and raised by her grandmother until the age of 7 when she was forced to attend residential school. Maria has dedicated much of her life to child welfare. She was employed by many social service agencies and lovingly cared, forget this, over 350 foster children, many with Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder. Maria is an angel among us. She's offered each and every one of these children a safe place and a loving environment, one that is supported by pride in their cultural identity. We are incredibly honored to welcome to the stage. Please welcome Maria Linklater.
Put my brakes on. Is it on?
Check.
Beto now. Notes pungo steno ta meton kanisa aptsugani ano mita. Kapian kon the brakes is pitaman. Wa ka kyo tatam skat now. Mi asana magesitsig. Kiwai pukawasis sa gawin pa en nagatayag tikchawasim swag. Kaks kana moayog. Mi asik manawas sa kapesitsig. Eksega segi tutame muigatso nagatawas sok nestawas segi pa wichetsik. You know, I am glad to be here. You know, what's missing is the little people. I said you must have left them behind, because as our way of life, we never went any place without our children. We took our children everywhere we went. But times have changed. The teaching happened at home. From the time you got up in the morning, you were going to school, and the last thing you did before bedtime was storytelling about what happened that day, what have you done. And some tell us you can only tell stories in wintertime. You know, some of the stories you can only tell in wintertime. Now I'm sharing you the way I was raised. Like, I went to the residential school for 8 years. I started residential school when I was 7. My grandmother raised me. She helped my mother bring me into this world. It was April 5th, 1942, and we were living in Turtle Lake. That's where the trap line was. And the last time we were in Thunderchild was at Christmas time, where everybody would all gather there, and everybody would go to midnight mass. And then we'd stay there and then go back to where we would live off the land, fishing, hunting. And then that one morning, my mother got sick, and then my mother was saying that they needed to get back to Thunderchild, where the midwives were. That we had one midwife, her name was Maggie Okini. She delivered most of the children that are the same age, that about maybe in their 73, 77 today, and the people 75. Later on, they all went into the hospital. So anyway, we went to Thunderchild, and then my grandfather just made it in time to get to the house, and he went in and started up the stove, put some wood, paper, whatever he can get. And they said that it was warmer outside, April 5th, 1942, and it was so cold in this Indian Affairs log house that was given to us to live in. And then my grandfather proceeded to go and get Maggie Okini down the road, and then so my grandmother was left alone to deliver me. And then Maggie Okini, as she was coming up the steps, she knew, and she said, "A woman is born, and her voice is going to echo to the four corners of the world," she said. And then my grandmother replied, "Let's hope she's not a gossiper." So that's how I came into this world. You know, my grandmother raised me. That was the best education I could ever have. And in the residential school, I went up to grade 2. I was diagnosed as borderline mentally retarded. Them days yet, can you imagine? because I could not speak English. All I could do was speak Cree. And I went up to grade 2, and all I ever did was babysit, look after the children, clean the house, the classrooms, dust everything I can, scrub the corners, stairway, do the laundry. That's what I did. So, but today, like, because of what my grandmother taught me is the best education, I would say. Today I tell people, learn about your way. Learn as much as you can, but not on the expense of your culture. Because you're never gonna lose anything, never, never. It's always gonna be there. But you yourself could be lost. And my grandmother taught me common sense. She taught me the greatest things about life, how to help people. You know, the things that you had to do, you know, to make bannock, bake it in open fire outside. We never had stoves that, you know, what we have today, no microwaves. We all had wood stoves, space heaters, and we would even cook outside. Even in wintertime, we'd do the cooking. And then we would sew, we'd make blankets. And these are the things today that are missing. Today, some people don't know how to bake bannock, even though the bannock was not ours. The Scottish people brought that, but we adopted it. We added opikas in there so it could rise, so it wouldn't be like hardtack. You know, so lots of things we learned: dry meat, dry fish. We never had to have fridges, but at the same time, we had wells, and about maybe 6 feet down into the well, you would see ice down there. Later on, that would be our fridge later on in life. And today, we never really lost our language. I think the English language, you know, mix us up. Like, I have a hard time, you know, to speak the jargon, you know, English. I get mixed up with gender, you know, he, she. And then some of the grandchildren are very protective of me. They'll tell each other, you don't correct Nogum. We understand her. She's got her own way of talking. Because in her language, there's no she, he. They'll tell each other. But I only have a few regrets in my life. The one regret is that I did not teach my children. That's the regret I have. And then the other regret is wakuton motikskrahmogik, ngawis no chawis, nimse simis. I didn't teach them that. I started to name my children by their names. And growing up, my grandmother never called us by our names. She'd call us nusim, nusen, chichim. Like, that's what we were called. Today now, it's like I noticed that disrespect is starting to happen. And it's so acceptable. Like, some parents will allow their children to call them by their name. And that's how it is. And the more you lose those ways, the more disrespect happens. So we need to do our best to feel comfortable in our own way of life. Like, what's wrong with kawakutoya? There's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's so sacred. Life is sacred. We live in a sacred space. But when we start not allowing that to happen in our own home, we're going to be heading for trouble. That's what happens. And then there's so much that we can learn from one another as grandmothers. We can teach each other. Like, I remember, I started up a little bit saying that storytelling in wintertime, sacred stories you could tell in wintertime, but grandmothers can tell stories anytime. We can talk about stories about parenting. We can tell stories about moontime, getting our babies ready, not wait till the last minute, teaching our sons to respect women, to have respect for their grandmother, their mother, to start at home. We can teach those stories, but sometimes we give mixed messages saying that we can't tell stories in the summertime. We can tell hunting stories. There's so many things that we can do. We can take our children to go and visit the grandmothers, to go and visit the grandfathers. We can do all that. You know, I can't see here. It's so bright here. Where's that time? Who is the, yeah, it's too bright, I can't see. You know, there's so many things that we can do, and we can also visit the schools. And so much has happened today when we talk about TRC, Truth and Reconciliation. You know, there's so much to that, like our fathers, our grandfathers, that went to the world wars, the Second World War, you know, the First World War. We have one grandfather that went to the two wars from Thunderchild. You know, his daughter is here. Tan Tiktapin, right here. Gladys. Her father went to the two world wars. See, and that's almost forgotten too now. That's forgotten. We have to allow that to happen, not just on Veterans Day. That should be taught every day as our education. And the other thing is, in our schools, we should have our grandfathers, our grandmothers on the walls that, you know, those are the people that brought us here. Those are the names that should go on, and their pictures we should have. Instead of, you know, my grandchildren, they go to Mount Royal High School. I went there one time. I didn't see any of my grandfathers there. They're all monia, on the wall, when it should be all the leaders from this community. We have so many leaders around here. The reserves, those are the people that should be on there, because everybody has to relearn. Our children has to learn that. And I had spoken to one of the young women to tell us that we need to hear about our ancestors, what they did. We need to hear that, but we are visual learners. We need to see their pictures. That's what I had told them. But, you know, has that to happen yet? It's not happening yet. But maybe you teachers can start that. In the ones that are in school here in Saskatoon, you can start that. You're going to be doing us a great big favor, and not to forget about our people that went to the war. And then, like, I'm always kind of you know, you tell me something, and if I don't like it, I'm not going to do it. That's how I am. I still get rebellious in my old age. Some people said, we're not celebrating 1st of July. We're not celebrating Canada Day. And then I was asked, what do you think, Maria? I said, like hell. I said, I'm celebrating Canada Day. I said, my father fought for this country we live in. Why should I forget about him to please other people? I said, we're celebrating it. I said, and I told Nussim, go and set up a teepee there and set up some flags. You know, put your grandfather's picture. Let's have your grandfather's monument in front, and people can visit. People were passing by the street, then I'd call them, come here, I'll tell you a story. And then I'd tell them a story about my father. We have a little teepee. Right in Avenue W North, there's a little teepee. If you blink, you're going to miss it. But it's been sitting there for 3 years now. And that's how much I believe our way is just as good. If we're not going to do it, nobody's going to do it. We have to do it ourselves. And when I'm gone, hopefully one of my Japanak, my grandchildren, is going to replace me. Because I don't want to easily be forgotten. You know what I have to offer is lots. I may not have made it to the academic education. I didn't, but I have my grandmother's teachings. You know, I have common sense. You know, I know what's right and wrong. You know, and I know stories. And then there'll be all kinds of teachings. You know, sometimes you'll be taught, you give an elder a little bit of tobacco, a pinch of tobacco. You go and do that, you know. I always tell people, be generous. Don't come and give me a pinch of tobacco. I said, I'm worth a package of tobacco. I said, I sit on my rear end hours and hours. I said, and you think I'm going to accept a pinch of tobacco? I said. And that pinch of tobacco they talked about was, they went and picked that indapus, you know, a long time ago, red willow, at saka sipagwa. You know, they took that and they dried it and they mixed it and they made this sacred tobacco. That's what they're talking about. And they tell you to give a pinch of tobacco so they could put it in their pipe and have a pipe ceremony. But today now, they'll give you one cigarette, and sometimes too, like I get so offended when somebody comes and gives me 4 cigarettes for 20 braids of sweetgrass. You know, see, that's how lost we are. And also some people, they're teaching sweetgrass, how to pick sweetgrass. They're teaching that, But what's happening is they're picking hay. And the hay, When they give it to you, the hay is so stiff, like it's just out like this, eh? And then the sweetgrass, when it's dried, it's curly, it's bouncy. See, that's what we've lost to. So we can't go around teaching how to pick sweetgrass. Let it be a ceremony. Do it right. Get the grandmothers and the mothers, the parents, come to you as a family and say, like how to go about getting the sweetgrass, or to get you know, that's missing too now. It's so easy to go around giving, you know, giving little things, to go and get, you know, it was never like that before. So we have to do our best to bring that back. As you know, the sooner the better we can do that. There's enough of us now that are that will know what to do. And if we don't know what to do, we go and ask somebody. And also to remember, children are sacred. They're on loan to us. It's up to us to look after them. And to also not to be afraid to tell. If you're thinking about having a baby in the near future, don't do drugs or alcohol. And at one point, 4 to 4 years ago, the message was a woman should not drink when she's going to have a baby. You know, at them days, my first experience with taking my little niece, she's fetal alcohol syndrome. I took her, I knew what was wrong with her. My sister drank when she carried her. I knew what was wrong with her, so I told the doctor. So when every month I'd go to this hospital to go and do a presentation to the doctors to teach them about how I treat this little girl. And one of the greatest medicines is love, to care for her, I told them. Every month I would go using sandbags, little pieces for the little girl to use to lift her little arms because she was so shaky. Her head would shake. And I would put sandbags on her bonnet, sew them on, and then she would stop shaking. And then I'd put strips at the back so she'd straighten out. I worked hard on that. Nobody told me what to do. My grandmother taught me common sense, so that's what I used. And I used a sacred land from Lake Superior, white sand, just pure white. That's what we got. And I got some ladies to help me to do this. You know, that's what I did. And then I told the doctors, it's always the woman getting the blame for everything. I said, I'm going to tell you, I told them, you start telling your patients that men, if they're going to be helping us to create babies, you tell them if they're going to be drinking alcohol, that their sperm is going to be contaminated. You tell them that. And then they said, we can't because it's not medically proven, they said. So I told them, well, I'm telling you from a grandmother. I wasn't even a grandmother yet. So we must not be afraid, you know, to tell what we know. And it's all of it is teachings. And today now my little niece, Tracy, and little children that have FASD, FAS, whatever you want to call that, you know, when they have that, their bones are kind of deformed, their spine are deformed, and a couple of discs slipped behind here. So she had to get surgery. And then what happened was when she woke up, she couldn't feel nothing. They had to do the second surgery within 48 hours. And then she could feel something then, but as of now, she's been in a hospital. Tomorrow will be 1 month. She's paralyzed, waist down. She can't walk. She can't stand, but she can move now. She can start. So now they're gonna start putting her on a something that she can jump on to straighten her legs and also to help her walk. So she needs prayers, this little girl. It's not her fault. And I also attribute that to my sister going to the residential school. You know, the things that we suffered in a residential school. And then they tell us also, when is it ever going to be over? They tell us that, eh? And I always tell them, when we get our land back, you know, it's not even our land. It's on loan to us. But we are the keepers of the land. Creator gave us that land to live in, to keep it clean, you know, to live in it, to live in harmony with the land. Gave us a drugstore along to come with it. Creator did not give us this land. It's not ours. It's for us to share. That's what my grandmother told us. Ehawi ko siya ko maski kanana patehtamak. Kuesa kana chihtayak. Kami nagamusa ka na mapuko ki kway iko pagkapat chihtayak. Muegi ko mistake ko put na maso aki kway. Kami na kameki yak mina awiyak ng tawetak. kataso na mga kaya. That's what she said. Like, take only what you can take. Don't take too much, but take enough for yourself and to share. And that would be the medicine. And my grandmother taught me also a medicine, but I wouldn't call myself a medicine woman. But she taught me medicine. And my mother had 8 girls, and my grandmother was given medicine about labor, to drink that medicine when a woman is going into labor. Like, we know that medicine also, but we don't brag about it or talk about it, and we just don't volunteer and give it. People have to approach properly. So there's so many things that, we can share with one another. It's not in the books. And the other thing that gets me sad, too, is when people go on Facebook and start beaking off about wearing skirts and things like that, we're colonized. That's not true. Even the non-native people, 1400s, they wore beautiful dresses. Non-native women, they all had dresses on. Nothing wrong with that. And today now, we have ribbon dresses that are so beautiful and so sacred, little girls wearing little dresses that's so nice. But not to be afraid. Don't be so, what the messages I'm giving, don't get offended if somebody says anything about you having to wear a skirt, supposing if you have to go to a ceremony. Either wear that skirt or don't bother going. Nobody's going to miss you if you don't go there. At least I won't. Yeah. But to wear a dress, and the thing is, when you become a teacher, you are a role model. You are a leader for our little children. You are taking our place. From the time you have them, they enter your classroom. You are looking after our little children. Do a good job. Drugs and alcohol, stay away from it. That's hurt us enough. That hurt us too much. The children are going to sense you if you've been drinking. They're going to smell you. Children are so smart. But not to do that. Don't do drugs and alcohol. In other words, stop drinking. Don't waste any time drinking. I can't be telling everybody anything, but I think that time is up here. So I will stop now.
Chris is just handing her braid of hay and 4 cigarettes for being here. She kept it real, eh? Yes. One more round of applause for Elder Maria Linklater.